Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 328. My name is Brando. Welcome, Mr. Sean Beavan. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Brando?
Even though if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, I mean, you're not moonlighting as a Juliet somewhere. That's
Yeah, I'm
Juliet
not
Bevan.
moonlighting as Juliet. She's usually the one that people would rather look at than me. So
That's fair enough. Fair enough. And also, so people know why I'm hiding behind a microphone. I still have a chipped tooth from a car accident. I gotta get that fixed. I think it's well,
microphones aren't helpful that way. Because I got mine once I was playing with Humble Pie, and I was playing bass for him, and it was like a really stormy night in a outdoor venue or whatever, and the microphone like kind of tilted, you know what I mean? Like and like went upside down, so the microphone's kind of hanging upside down, and I'm singing like I don't need no doctor or whatever. So I go underneath it and I start singing like that, and then the mic just drops, knocks the back of my tooth out.
ooh, oh,
That hurts so bad.
oh wow. And I was gonna say, I was thinking the introduction would be like, I don't know where to start with you, Sean, and I just love. So I was playing bass with a Humble Pie. It just starts. So so talking to somebody like you, obviously there's so many different, well, it's not obvious, there's so many different places to start in your resume, but before it gets lost in the weeds, what are you doing now, especially during the pandemic, and how has your career changed? We were talking off the air how I was in a studio before in New York City, and now I'm at home sitting on cat litter. So how's your what are you up to? How's your life changed?
It's funny. I almost feel bad about this, but my life hasn't changed at all during the pandemic. I've been working out of my own home studio for probably a decade or more. And sometimes I go to studios to like record, you know, drums or orchestra or something, but it's mostly I work out of my house. So, and my house has always had a live room to do drums in. It's always had, which is sometimes my bedroom, sometimes, whatever. Cause you can make anything work really. So yeah, it really, the only thing that happened for me for the pandemic was right before it started, I had an old Neve console, and I was kind of deciding to to buy a bunch of new stuff because I wanted to be able to travel more and record. So I was like, I'm gonna get rid of this Neve console. So I sold the Neve console like the week that the lockdown came together. So like I'd sold this console with, made a good amount of money on it, obviously, Neve. And it was like that thing of like, well, I have a really big cushion, so if this lasts a couple years, I'll be okay. And luckily that has worked out.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, I've been working the way I normally work, which is, people ask me to mix stuff, they send me files, I mix them, I send them back to them, and that works really good. And when I'm working with directors, like, because I do a lot of composition for films and stuff, and that's always been the same workflow, which is like one day out of the project, we get together and we do a spotting session where he shows me the final cut of the film, and we talk about scene to scene what he's interested in, hearing. Plays me like temp music that they've got or whatever, and like what he likes about the temp music, what he doesn't like about the temp music, that kind of thing. And so it's like a 1 day, 6-hour thing in a room together, and then the rest of the time I'm here with Juliet. We're writing the stuff, and then we send him a little QuickTime file every day of the 5 minutes that we did or 3 minutes we did, and then they tell me what they like, and I make changes, and I keep going. So it's literally, I'm at home most of the time anyway, so it really didn't change anything.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. And I will say, obviously, the pandemic is terrible, but it's been a blessing. I'm finally the home studio life, and I like it.
It's great. I
I
mean,
do.
that's, for me, that was one of the things I kind of saw this coming down the pike, a long time ago, and mainly because like, where I come from, like Nine Inch Nails, Manson, it's like we did everything at home anyways. Like it was all labor intensive stuff. Every time we'd do an album, we'd build another studio and work out from home or whatever, and it was one of those things. So I just started gathering equipment over the years, and made it always so I could do some work in a studio and then go home and like maybe do vocals at my house. That was always the easiest thing. And I got used to the thing of mixing at the house, where instead of okay, they booked me, I'm pretty expensive, and then they book a room that I'm mixing in, that's pretty expensive, right? And so now it's like, well, I got to work the whole 12 hours a day that's locked out because I'll feel bad if I, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? You know, that kind of thing. So I used to work like 12, 14 hours a day. And then as I started working at home, I started doing things much more efficiently. And so
Mm.
now it takes less time and the work is actually better. And I can do things like I can mix, say, 2 songs in one day, but I'll only mix for like 2 or 3 hours per song. And then the next day I'll listen to it with fresh ears, fresh ideas. Boom, like do another hour or two. And I've done a mix that probably would have taken me 3 days to do, but I can do it in a few hours, you know? And it works really great. Like it's made the creative process better, makes it flow better. And the great thing is too, clients don't walk into a room that they're unfamiliar with, you know what I mean? And listen and go like, oh, I think I hear things right. You know, I send it to where they listen, you know what I mean? What they normally listen to stuff at, they know what things sound good there. And so they get to hear it in their environment and then make changes from there. And it works out really, really well. And anything we need to be together to do, we do over Skype, you know, or Zoom, or, you know, and that's worked out great. I work with this band Shining in Norway all the time. And Jorgen, the lead singer, and I write over Zoom. You know, we'll just sit there and, you know, come up with ideas. He'll play me some stuff. I'll like say like, oh, it'd be great if you did this with like a 4 on the floor kick drum and, you know what I mean? And we kind of really like kick ideas around like that. And then we'll go separately and kind of do some stuff together and then send it to each other, then make comments and do it that way. So it works out perfect, you know?
Has there been an influx? Because you mentioned whether it's Skype or Zoom, because pre-pandemic, I was strictly just a audio podcaster, you know, an old school radio kind of personality. And
Right.
and since, especially, you would see it on the news. It's just people were forced to do it, and then everyone started doing it. Have you seen like an influx of clients, you know, from new content creators, anyone that maybe like reached out to you that surprised you? That because a lot of people use this time to, you know, reinvent themselves or to try things they didn't do before, or again, making their home studio. So,
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the cool things. I think there are several things. Like today, this morning, I did an interview with Toby Wright, who was like the producer for Alice in Chains and all that stuff. And he's doing a podcast now with does a lot of engineers, and you kind of talk shop, you know, about engineering and stuff like that. And what I think is great about that, and like Rick Beato's YouTube channel, Warren Hewitt's Produce Like a Pro channel, like YouTube channel, Pensado's place, like Dave Pensado's thing, is like we're finding ways to do kind of what we used to do in the old school engineering thing, where it's like you come in as an assistant engineer and you work with a guy who's been engineering on a lot of great stuff, and he gets to kind of show you the ropes as he knows them. You know what I mean? And gets to impart that knowledge
sure.
to you. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, it was all done in like the guild system in the old days, but now it's like everybody works kind of out of their home. They work in different circumstances. You know, it's like guys are doing podcasts and they're doing, you know, they've got a side gig they're doing like graphic arts, or they're doing editing for, you know, film or editing for TV. You know, on off days, I mix television shows, you know what I mean? I'll mix films. It's like you can do all these things, you know, but since we're all so busy doing that, you don't have the system where you get to work with someone who you admire, who does really cool stuff and has done really cool stuff, and you get to kind of learn from them. So I think these podcasts and these Zoom channels and YouTube channels really provide a way for the old school to bring knowledge to the new school, and vice versa. Because of Zoom, like this is what I love about it, is that when you, like I have clients who write to me and they're like, you know, can I do a lesson on mixing with you? Like, can you, you know, teach me how you use the mix bus, or how you do, you know, and like, or how you record drums, like how did you get this drum sound or that guitar sound or whatever. And like I'll say, yeah, we'll do a Zoom and I can go over that with you, you know. And some guys will say like, I'm working on a mix and my idea is to do something like this. What do you think about that? You know, and so I can listen to their mix, I can make critiques, we can talk back and forth. I learn a lot from it as well, just like, you know, like new like hip hop artists or EDM artists come in and they've done something and I see how they do it and it's like, oh, that's like a really cool idea. And then I give them my ideas of how I do this to make it pump more, make, how they can effectively make things have more space frequency wise or less masking in their mixes. And it's like the influx of all that knowledge like serves all of us, because there's so much you can learn from the new guys who are doing cool and radical stuff in their house because they're making it up as they go. You know what I mean? It's like when I started with Nails, we were making it up, like nobody had ever used a BA68 compressor the way we did, or ran, distortion pedals into gates, distortion pedals into gate, like come up with stuff like that, So it's that thing of it increases an ever expanding vocabulary of what we do, which is awesome.
If there was any producer who was prepared for a pandemic, it's Sean Beavan. And then I feel like, again, I'm catching up a bit, even though I'm quote unquote ahead of the game. Obviously, you've just been you just mentioning 9 Inch Nails. I mean, yeah, they started something new with using a different tactic. So that's just one avenue we can go down.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot. But I mean, you mentioned distortion. You're on Appetite for Distortion. So I would be remiss, and I appreciate just how easy this was to get you on the podcast. I don't want to say I appreciate that. I'm not saying
cool.
that, you say yes to everybody, but because Chinese democracy is such an enigma, and that era of Guns N' Roses is such an enigma. Maybe like a month ago now, I was lucky enough to interview Dave Navarro, who recorded with GNR just on Oh My God, just one song, Oh My God, in the End of Days soundtrack. And we were talking a lot about mental health, and he opened up about why he couldn't join the band at the time. He wasn't mentally ready, but just him telling his story. And I don't know if you were in the studio at the time.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
At this particular time, then.
Yeah.
When he's like, "Where's Axel?" He shows up, and he does his parts, and then all of a sudden he hears a voice that happens to be Axel on a speakerphone. He didn't know Axel was there.
Yeah.
You were there, one of the people in the studio?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was one of the people in the studio. Yeah.
And because that was just a brilliant story. And for people like me who loved that song right away, I was never thrown off by the industrial angle that Guns N' Roses was going. Maybe it has to do with my age. My first concert was with Buckethead. So, I mean.
Right.
I was too young. My first concert ever was the Ninja Turtles at Radio City Music Hall. So I just.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it is, but I just never had the chance to. I didn't grow up with the Appetite lineup. I grew up being conscious of already the Illusions and just wanting anything, wanting the. Sorry if I got your leaks during. I mean, has anyone ever apologized to you for getting the Chinese democracy leaks?
Yeah, people have. In fact, the guy who leaked it has apologized to me.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
First things first, because I was just mentioning it. What can you tell us about Oh My God in that song? And because it was the first GNR song to come since the band broke up.
So yeah.
How did that come about?
It was one of those things we were working. I had been there for probably 3 months or so, 4 months, maybe even longer, maybe 5. We had done about 35 songs during that period of time. So we because at that point in time, it was like 1998, 99. The band was Tommy Stinson playing bass, Josh Freese on drums, Robin Fink was playing guitar. I actually played one of the rhythm guitars on that song, on Oh My God. And Dizzy was playing keyboards. Paul Hughey was playing guitar, rhythm guitar. And it was pretty it was the 4 guys, that group of people were the main guys that were there for several months. And that was like every day writing songs and just, laying stuff down quickly. Because, when you got Josh Freese involved, it's going to be quick with the drum tracking for sure.
He was on recently as well and told us about Smells Like Josh Spirit.
Yes.
He told us about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's the best. But we had like a really good time with it, and it was a little like I was a little more uncomfortable with it because it was so pushed toward industrial, and that was I thought that was kind of odd, you know what I mean? Like, but it was interesting, and it was really like Axl was really excited about it, vibe wise and stuff, and it was one of the first songs where he like just came up with lyrics immediately, like it was like super fast. He was really excited by it, and we got most of it laid down, and then I think Jimmy Iovine came in the studio and like listened to it because he was listening to what was going on. And that one he like heard and he goes, well, that's pretty much, that's done, right? And we're like, yeah, I mean, it just needs to be mixed or whatever, you know? And he goes, you know, I've got a movie for that. I could put that on a movie right now. We should put it out, you know? And that's my Jimmy Iovine impression. Everybody was like, what, you know, like, but he was just like, let's put it out, let's do it. And Axl went along with it, you know. So it's like we went to New York, Andy Wallace mixed it, and it was one of those things where it was just kind of the ball just rolled really quick on it, you know. And it was kind of perfect for the movie, you know, worked really well. So you know, it was loud and raucous, and you know. And so it worked out great. You know, it was just really cool and fun to be a part of. And it was strange at a time when I didn't think Axl was going to want to put anything out until everything was done, because he had an idea of like kind of putting 3 records out at once. But he got on board with Jimmy, and they made it happen. Jimmy made it happen quick.
And so that was Jimmy's idea to put it on End of Days soundtrack. I had I guess it's my bubble was burst when somebody said that. I don't know if you saw it's like online ads for Schwarzenegger in Zeus, which I don't know if it's going to be a Super Bowl ad or a movie, but I was like, if they were to redo, oh my God, which to me, that's untouchable. I'm not just saying because you're here, first listen, but if they were to redo it with Slash and Duff, why not debut it on another Schwarzenegger movie? So I didn't know if that was like an Axl thing. So that's interesting, Jimmy.
Yeah.
That was Jimmy's idea. But the backtrack a little bit, how did you first get involved with Guns N' Roses?
Okay, that's an interesting story, actually. I had just finished Mechanical Animals, and I was looking for the next thing I was going to be doing. And at the same time, Billy Howardell called me. And because Billy and I had worked together on 9 Inch Nails, he was Trent's guitar tech on the Downward Spiral tour. And we were good friends. And he was like, hey, I'm doing the Guns N' Roses record. He goes, I'm guitar teching, but I'm also doing Logic with him and like kind of helping him write some songs. And Robin Fink has joined the band. He's playing lead guitar. And Robin and I started talking you up to Axl. And Axl really wants to have you come in and talk, you know. And so I was a little reticent because it seemed like it would be going from, you know, when you're doing 9 Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson, it's like at least a year commitment, everything, you know what I mean? Like it's longer term stuff. And I knew that with working with Axl would be similar. You know what I mean? And I kind of wanted to go to something that was kind of quick, you know?
Went to the wrong project.
I went to the wrong project. But, and so I was reticent, but I love Robin. I love his playing. And I love Billy. He's just a great, great guy and a very creative guy. And he was just starting, like the Perfect Circle project, you know, and he had played me some of that stuff and it was really cool. And I was going to help him out on some of that stuff. And then, he was just like, you got to meet Axl. So I went in and had a meeting with Axl. We just sat in the studio together and just talked music, really. And we just hit it off. You know, it was one of those things where you realize like someone's kind of like your brother. You know what I mean? Like we're the same age. We have the same, like our favorite bands are the same bands. You know what I mean? Like favorite producers are the same producers. Like he's a Queen fanatic. I'm a Queen fanatic. Alice Cooper fanatic. He's Alice Cooper fanatic. And like all these things, like parallels were just great. And it was too kismet to not go with it. You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay, I got to do this, and at the same time, Tom Wally had asked me to do some pre-production work with No Doubt, and the timing worked out kind of perfect so that I could do the pre-production with No Doubt and start the Guns N' Roses thing. So it just happened, And Axe and I just like, there was a kismet, you know what I mean? You couldn't deny it.
Which is awesome to hear. And that's what you kind of want in the producer, and to kind of grow with the project. And which is just why it's become such an anomaly of just all the changes it went through all the years. And you kind of hear all the changes when you listen to it. And if you notice, I got Chinese Democracy, right behind me.
Yeah.
My shoulder. I bought that day of.
Wow.
I bought that day of. I was the only one. I wasn't the only one, but I was holding it up in the middle of Best Buy like Simba. Rafiki holding Simba.
Yeah.
I was like, it's here. I'm holding it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Not
13 years.
Intended.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I was there for I think two of the 2 years of it.
So, which is just wow, which is only part of the adventure. So when you go in, how big of a Guns N' Roses fan were you at that time, and what was your vision? Because you're now going to work with Axl Rose and essentially Nine Inch Nails and what would become a Perfect Circle. This is an all new band.
Yeah.
No offense to Dizzy, it's an all new band. So what was your mission? What was your goal? How did you go into the project?
I kind of went into it with the idea that it was Axe's baby. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to make a Guns N' Roses record in the standard Guns N' Roses way because Guns N' Roses wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like everybody, when you think about bands in terms of the kind of classic rock style of the lead singer and the lead guitarist, you know what I mean? Like, and that thing. And I knew that the lead guitarist that was kind of iconic for that band was not there anymore. You know what I mean? So this had to be kind of like a reinvented Guns N' Roses that was more a pure Axl Guns N' Roses than it was a collaboration of foils that work well together in their antagonism. You know what I mean? And so I had it from that perspective, and I wasn't thinking that I was going to try to make this into, Guns N' Roses somehow, or that somehow I would convince him to have, Slash come back in the band or whatever. It's like I didn't have any of those delusions. It was more like, let's get Axl's vision onto tape, you know what I mean? Like, and make it happen. Which is always my idea. Cause when I go in, like when I had that talk with Axe, it's all about empathy. You know what I mean? Like when you walk into the room and you start talking to the artist, you really listen to what they're saying so that you can understand where they're coming from and where they want to go. Cause that's your job. You know what I mean? Like you're the sounding board, you're the taste filter. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't ever make my record when I'm making someone else's record. I make their record. You know what I mean? I try to make that happen, And so that was my point there, was just like really listen to what Axl was thinking about and what he wanted to accomplish, and then try to figure out the best way to help him accomplish that,
So along with that, there was no thought of, don't call this Guns N' Roses. This should be Axl Rose.
Yeah, I didn't think that way either, and because Axl wasn't thinking that way. He was thinking of it as an evolution of Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think to Axl, Guns N' Roses wasn't his, right? It wasn't Slash's. It wasn't Duff's. You know what I mean? It was an entity unto itself that had taken its kind of like a railroad train. You know what I mean? And he was taking it to the next evolution. You know what I mean? It was going to be what in his stewardship, this is where it was going. You know what I mean?
I do.
It made sense to me. You know what I mean? And I like bands to evolve. You know what I mean? So I wasn't against that at all. You know what I mean? Like it made sense to me.
It made sense to me too, which is why I was excited. Again, apologies for the leaks, but I thought we would never get it. My first GNR concert was seeing Buckethead. So I mean, that was, this band, that era has a closeness to my heart.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss because I got so many questions. It's all along the same lines. And, I want to give people proper shout outs. I mean, half of them are going to be like Twitter handles and things like that. But,
right.
Just to show people, I listen. I want to ask the questions for the people because we're all, not just me. Everyone's appreciative of your time today. So just thank you. This is from Pel83. So many to fit into Twitter character limits. Obviously, Chi Dem questions. Hopefully, we've answered a couple so far. Tommy and Robin were writing a lot of music, which you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Where did Axel come in and all that? So did Axel speak to you, I guess, directly as much? Did you guys discuss tracks? And yeah, let's get to that before, because he has more questions.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Axe was very involved in even the basic writing of the songs. Like, his guys would come in with like kind of sketches of ideas and stuff, and then Axel would listen to the ideas. Like, even if they were, because they were all in a room, we had the live room set up with monitors and everything so that they could play as a band. You know what I mean? And like, Josh would come in and play like a riff on guitar and say like, hey, I wrote this, or, Robin would do the same thing, and they'd kind of come out, they'd jam it, you know what I mean? And then Axe would be like, I think this part should go here, blah, blah, blah. Or like, that inspired him to come up with a piano line that, it was like a band. They were a band, you know what I mean? They were doing it like a band. And at the same time, one of the things Axel was doing to kind of bring it all into the Guns N' Roses spirit is he was having that band learn all of the songs from Appetite. And so they were learning Appetite and playing it with their vibe, but learning Appetite so that they became part of that Guns N' Roses aesthetic. You know what I mean? So it wasn't just a bunch of session guys. He wanted them to all kind of be playing stuff that they had done so that when they moved to new stuff that they were writing, they'd be in that same kind of mode. And that was kind of how that was done. And it worked really, really well. And Axe was always interested in new stuff, what people would come up with. And he didn't care who came up with it. Like, literally, it could be, Billy Howardale would come up with something like some cool loop or something that he was doing in the room with the Logic system. And Axe would be like, hold on, I gotta go write that. You know what I mean? And like, they'd work on lyrics, and he would sing stuff to what Billy was doing. And that became, there are several songs that on the record that came from that, you know what I mean? Just from Billy, who is essentially a guitar tech and a programmer on the record, So it was whoever who had the best ideas, you know what I mean? And Axe would work with them.
I like that. And knock on wood, chances are pretty good that I'll get Billy Howardale this summer for
excellent.
Yeah, he's working on secret stuff. I think he is. That I probably shouldn't have said. I've not really said much of anything. Actually, just to finish this guy's question, I mean, it might tie into a lot of different things. We can go a lot of different ways. Do you have favorite songs from that era? And I guess with that, are they on Chinese Democracy or are they not?
They are. I all of them, like all the ones that I like, all my favorites from that era, because we did like 35 songs. I think all my favorites were actually put on the record. You know what I mean? And because most of them were the ones that Axe ended up singing on. You know what I mean? Almost all the vocals on Chinese Democracy were ones that I recorded.
Okay.
So, so I like, they're still close to me. I like Riyadh and the Bedouins. I like blues. I like those are the ones that hit me like right away thinking of, but I mean, there's several more that I really liked on that record. So,
well, what about, since it was, the leak said the blues, but when it came out, it was Street of Dreams.
Yes.
Where you were just like, oh, they changed the title. We did, like, I don't know. Sometimes if you did that.
Well, the blues was always the blues was a working title. That was even before he had music. You know what I mean? So like, it ended up being Street of Dreams, and that those lyrics were part of it already when we did it. It's just that they never, like, while I was working on it, he never changed the name of it while he was, you know what I mean, while it was on the lists or whatever, But yeah, I mean, and the lyrics are, I mean, the last time I recorded it, it was pretty much exactly the same, which was surprising to me in a way. And this is one of the things about Axl. I think there's something people should know about Axl. It's one of the things that really endear him to me. When I first got in there to produce, I mean, one of the things you do as a producer is you keep an eye on the budget. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
And I want to make sure that money is going to things that need the money. You know what I mean? And at the time there was a lot of money going out per month, and I was just trying to rein some of that in, so we had more money for things that we would deem important, like rentals and stuff. And one of the things was we had Axl's monitor engineer was there, and he was like, we had a big monitor console and all the monitor gear was there, and it was all being rented from Electrotech at the time, which is one of my favorite PA companies. And but it was a pretty good expense, you know what I mean? And so I said to Axe, I said, we don't really need the monitors, because we've headphones, we could do it all with headphones. I've got a really good headphone rig in here. So we should get rid of that, and that we can let the monitor engineer go, because we don't really need him, for a thing. And Axel was like, he's been with me for a long time. Like we've been working together for a long time. He's done a lot of tours with me and stuff. And he's got like kids, a family. He goes, and I just really want to do good by him. And I want him here. It makes me feel better that he's here, and I was like, okay. You know what I mean? Like when you've got that kind of loyalty, to people who have done you well over the years, that said a lot to me about who Axl was, so that became really important to me. And that it's funny when Chinese Democracy came out, and I know right when it came out, I got a copy right before it came out. And I, of course I'm a kid from the 70s, so I like open up the package, to read the package and listen to, I mean, like I put it in the CD player at the time, which I actually had a CD player at the time.
I did too. I had the CD as well. I was on my bed listening to it in my
headphones on. I got the liner notes out and I'm reading through the stuff. And like, I'm interested, it's been 13 years, at least 10 years since I had worked on it at all. And I was interested in all the changes that were going to be in the music and stuff, because they changed band members so much that I know, like, every time there'd be a different drummer, he would re-record the drums for that drummer, that every bass player, guitar players, they were re-recording a lot of stuff. And so I was just really interested in it. And then as I'm reading the liner notes, like, he's like crediting me for the vocals, like recording the vocals and little anecdotes about how it was done or whatever. And so, and I was just amazed, that after all that time, he would write that kind of stuff out, that like, and give me credit for things that like he didn't need to give me credit for, you know what I mean? But that's who he is, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of guy he is,
Right on. And I want to get to, at some point, your departure, and I spoke about the same thing with Josh Freese when he left to do a Perfect Circle. But as we're talking about, you mentioned the blues, and just how the infancy of some of these songs that just never made it. But now, I mean, it's last year, so not now. I'm trying to live. It's when you live in a pandemic, it's like every day feels like it's Groundhog Day, which just happened. When Hard School just came out, and Absurd. What are your memories of those songs, like, if any?
I don't really have memories of those ones. I think those are definitely ones that were done. Most of it was done later, I think. So that I don't have as many memories of that. I mean, it was 20 years ago or whatever.
I know.
24 years ago. I don't remember. It was a while ago. So.
Okay. I asked the same thing about to Josh Freese, and he doesn't recall. That's how the story of Chinese Democracy came out. The Smells Like Josh Spirit. Yeah. Because we're not getting that kind of, we don't know for sure who played on these. And just like with Chinese Democracy itself, who did what solo. It's like, even though I'm a kid from the 80s, I'm like, identify with the kid from the 70s. I want to read the liner notes. I want to know what's, who's playing what, because a lot of it blew my mind. Most of it blew my mind. So perhaps
I know I had replaced some of Josh's drum parts with Brain, because Brain came into play. So some of that stuff got replaced there. I mean, they were in the track listing, I mean, you could bring them up and stuff. Yeah. But I think that was the thing about Street of Dreams, the guitar solo that I remember the most was Robin's guitar solo, and I think that's the one that was used, but I'm not sure. But it's just such a brilliant guitar solo. I mean, there were, it's funny all that, you remember, because none of these guys were none of them were bad players.
Of course
None
not.
of the parts got replaced because they needed to be replaced. They were just replaced because Axl had a different guy playing now, and he wanted his energy in it. You know what I mean? Like that feeling, and
I
that's
get it.
that's part and parcel to Axl too. I mean, he wants to feel the people that he's playing with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I get that. I completely get that. This is a question from, maybe you remember this song, or what this song may be. I guess because this is just a song, one of those leaked or rumored. This is from Mike Rubino on Twitter. Would be interested to hear about working on Atlas Shrugged. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
I think Atlas Shrugged was one of the ones that Billy had started with Axl in the MIDI room, so like with the Logic system, and that one was started like that. But yeah, I mean, I do remember doing the vocals on that, and it was pretty typical. The lyrics were, it was when he was kind of doing stuff that was really literary, you know what I mean? So he was kind of referencing books when he was writing, and when he came into the studio to record the vocals, he wouldn't warm up like normal people do.
Okay.
Normal people do the
Scales or something.
yeah, scales and kind of things. He would come in, get in front of the microphone, and we'd set it up so that it had like batiks and candles, you know what I mean, like super, vibey, and he would come in and he would just start and do a 45-minute long stand-up routine. Like, he is one of the best joke tellers you will ever hear. Like, oh my God. And he remembers every joke he's ever heard. I think he remembers perfectly, and his timing is insane how good he is. And you have not lived until you've heard him do Sam Kinison. It's just amazing.
Wow.
Just amazing. But that was like the takeaways of, like, when he was doing vocals, like it would, and it was funny because all the little stand-up routines, he would take these jokes and they would kind of be tailored to what the lyrics on the song were going to be about. You know what I mean? So they'd all move into that territory. So he's that thoughtful about what he's writing. You know what I mean? And so even when he's doing something that's just hysterically gut-busting funny, he's tied it into what he's singing about. It's in some way. You know what I mean? Like, you can always run it. Yeah.
I love that. Any memories of the song Oklahoma? Is that a joke or reference to anything?
I thought it had to do with oh no, nope. I forgot what it was.
Okay.
It hit at a moment, but yeah. I mean, a lot of these songs have been so long ago that.
Oh, of course. But I mean, just to mention.
But I remember something about it. I can't remember what the. Oh, I wish I could remember.
That's okay. I mean, because I'll just mention, because sometimes you get a great story, and if it does come to you afterwards, feel free to email me, let me know. But
yeah, like when
we've had Brain on a couple times. Amazing person.
Oh, great guy.
And everyone, of course, you read these forums about what is the General about? It's about this. Is Axl Rose the General? And Brain's like, I was eating General Tso's chicken. That was it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No,
I love it. It's just so funny. It's just such a
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and you never knew where Axl was going to pull stuff from. You know what I mean? And he's definitely that guy that when he does lyrics, he uses inside jokes with the band members. You know what I mean? Like the people that are going around. Like he definitely tags these inside jokes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll credit that question to Black Star, who, I mean, I'm telling you, I won't overwhelm you, but I mean, some of these questions, it's like a job interview almost. So I hope I'm doing my best, guys. Doing my best. I guess, when did you I guess, decide to? Well, again, we spoke to Josh Freese about it. When did you realize like this is just I can't stay, or I'm not gonna put words in your mouth? Like, how did the relationship end?
For me, it was a combination of things. I at the time, um, I was, a pretty young producer, and I wanted to get like do a bunch of stuff, right? So I was getting antsy about. I've been here for a year and a half, like I need to put a record out. You know what I mean? So, I started because we were working mostly late at night, like from like midnight to 7 a.m. or something like that. Because by the last like 6 months that I was working with Axe, we were mostly doing vocals. It was like mostly vocal time. And so you either get him or you wouldn't get him, depending on all the stuff that happened to him every day, because there was always a million lawyer meetings and blah, blah, you know what I mean? And when you're doing vocals and you're writing lyrics, like that stuff can really throw you off. So it could go, you go 2, 3, 4 days without, acts coming into the studio because of all the stuff that was happening. And so I started doing where I could hang out, and come in, or if I knew he wasn't coming in, then I would come in, you know what I mean? And, because the only thing that was important was getting the vocals done at that time. And so I took on another job. So during the day I was working on, a God Lives Underwater record. And they were good buddies of mine from the 9 Inch Nails days or whatever. And so we could work like 5 hours a day, and that was fine with them. So I was doing that record at the same time. And I just got to the point where I was realizing like I have to keep doing music. Like I have to do something else. And at the same time, Jimmy Iovine and Tom Wally call me into the office, and they're like, we got to make this record happen faster. He goes, and I just have this feeling, because you and Axe are like buddies and the same age, like you're not pushing him enough, you know what I mean? And he's not feeling pushed by you to do this. And we were wondering what you thought of how he would react to like a more like elder statesman producer working with him, like, do you think that might give him the impetus to really kind of move a little more? And I didn't think that was a bad idea. Like I actually thought that was a good idea, because Axe and I were at that point where we were just kind of working, but I don't think I was challenging him in that way. You know what I mean? We were getting stuff done, but he didn't feel like I gotta get moving. He was comfortable. You know what I mean? And so was I. You know what I mean? But it was that thing of that seemed like a good idea to me. And my suggestion was call up Bob Ezrin and see if Bob wanted to come in and do it. Because I said, he's got a lot of respect for Bob. And I had just done a panel with Bob, like a producer panel with Bob, and we got along really well. And so with the kind of person he was and the kind of person Axe was, I thought that they would get along well. But Bob's like kind of a no nonsense guy, you know what I mean? And he might be the impetus that would be, Axe would be like, ooh, I'm kind of excited to work with a idol and, move along, And so that was my suggestion. And then they did a couple of calls, and then they said, well, we've got, Roy Thomas Baker is really interested in doing it. And I thought, that's great. Like Queen fanatics, both of us, you know what I mean? So like, I think that might really make him excited about, kind of pushing the envelope a bit. And so I was all down for it. And I said, I'll give, I'll stay there for like a month and kind of work him into it or whatever, and make, so we can make the transition kind of seamless. And that's pretty much what we did. Like we did that. And for me, it made it so that I could leave without feeling like I was leaving Axel in a lurch, you know what I mean? And keep my relationship with Axe, you know what I mean?
Cool with it all, with the
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, he was cool with it. He was really cool with Roy, you know. So I thought that whole thing worked great. So to me, it was like, you know, I think he understood where that was all coming from, and definitely he knew that Jimmy was kind of pushing for it, you know.
Okay.
And then, you know, when you get that new influx of creative energy that you get from having a guy that has done a million records you really respect, you know what I mean? It's like that just gives you a little extra something, you know what I mean? So I
Sure.
think it worked really well for him too. So it was a nicely seamless transition where there weren't a lot of hurt feelings or anything, you know what I mean? It was like,
Cool.
it was a real good for both of us, I think, you know?
Cool.
And it was at a perfect time because Josh had just left, you know, not too long before that Josh left, and Brain was in, and we were redoing Brain's parts, and Robin was leaving, and you know, what I mean, so I knew like an influx of people were going, so it was going to need new
Hmm.
life, new energy anyway, you know. So it turned out to work really well. Of course, Roy didn't take my advice, which was really push Axe on singing the songs. But
Um,
you know, they recorded some really cool stuff. So
they did,
yeah,
but I would be remiss not to ask you, since you're a Queen fanatic. Can you tell us what can you tell us about Brian May? And was that was it just Catcher in the Rye that he recorded on? And like was that version not used for on Chinese Democracy, right? Or was
yeah,
that
it
canceled?
wasn't used. Yeah, it
So
wasn't used.
what can you tell us about it? And why wouldn't you would think you got Brian May to record it? Like you would use that, you
Oh
know?
yeah, I mean, the stuff Brian played is great. You know what I mean? He's just great. What can you say? Um, but I think Brian came in with like a little bit of he's such a generative person. Like he really wanted to like kind of make a difference with Axe, and kind of hope to kind of push him to, you know, do a record quick and get it out there and maybe play with him. You know what I mean? Like, I think Brian was kind of interested in doing that as well. Like, um, and I think Axel just wasn't like, he didn't want another guy like that. You know what I mean? Like that he was going to, because you have to deal with, you know, the superstar that Brian May is. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
the whole thing. I think that's like because that introduces a whole new kettle of worms as far as, you know, balancing what you want to do with what he's going to want to do, and then you're creating a whole nother dynamic that's maybe similar to like him and Slash or whatever. You know what I
Does that
mean? And
mean do you mean him joining the band or him like doing guest appearances when the song comes on?
it wasn't really when it wasn't the it was the thing about getting him to do a guest appearance, but I think Brian also was really interested in maybe making it more than that. You
That
know what
would
I
have
mean?
been wow, that would have been interesting.
It
Yeah,
would,
that would have been a different animal. You couldn't call
yeah,
that Guns N' Roses. That would
no,
be
yeah, it would have.
a
I think it would
yeah,
have been a really interesting thing, and it would have been, but it would have been a whole nother band. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you
totally.
know, and when you think about like people with singular voices, you know what I mean? There are no like you know, two people with more singular voices, Brian May and Axl Rose. I mean, his guitar playing, he plays three notes and you know it's Brian May. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just like Axl, you know, one note and you know it's Axl, you know. So it's like that was like a whole nother kind of thing, and I don't think Axl was at that point where he was ready to do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? He wanted to be more of a I think he wanted Guns at that point to be more of a collaborative, like an ensemble,
Hmm.
and less of a star vehicle, you know what I mean, for different people or whatever.
Did that have any kind of direction as to why that the song wasn't included or that his version was not included on Chinese Democracy as to not take away from this new album, or was
Yeah,
that another?
I would imagine it was just maybe that it was what Brian brought to the table. Axel just like it was. Axel was just like, it's not doing it for me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, and you know how it is. Like, you can have the greatest guitar player in the world play,
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we had when we were doing Downward Spiral, we had Adrian Belew come in, you know, and play guitar on several tracks. And Adrian is like probably one of my favorite guitarists, you know, like incredible guitarist. And he played all kinds of really cool stuff. And Trent didn't like hardly any of it, except for like, because it wasn't what he was envisioning, you
I
know,
get that.
for
I
the
do.
record. And in the end, he took, I think, 24 tracks of Adrian soloing and put them all together and used them as a swarm of bees in the beginning of Eraser. You know what I mean? And it's freaking brilliant. Like, it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it really creates this feeling of the hive, you know, and the descent, you know, and it really, really was cool. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like Adrian's singular voice playing melodic or amelodic lines in a song as a solo just wasn't fitting into what Trent was envisioning. You know what I mean? Like, or he maybe thought it might be cool, but it wasn't. It turned out not to be what he wanted, and I think that's what happened with Axe.
Okay.
In that too, you know,
I get
because
that.
Axe is a huge Brian May fan. You know, I mean, obviously, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, but like for that moment, it just wasn't the right thing. You know.
Yeah. Okay. And speaking of, because I can't keep you here forever. I mean, if they ever do a Get Back version of Guns N' Roses, you can just do a documentary just on Chinese democracy.
Oh
And
my God, yes.
I mean, it's just so much. So, you know,
Yeah.
you got to eat. My cat's already jumping up and down, wanting to be fed. So I'm not going to keep you here too much longer.
Okay.
But since you mentioned Downward Spiral, this is from Eric P., our buddy. He says, please ask him what the experience was like recording Downward Spiral in the old, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, Saleo House.
Oh, it was the
And he's like, wants to know if you slept there, any recollections that you have from that album. In addition to the
yeah,
ones you've already told us, in that the Saleo Drive house.
Cielo, yeah, Cielo
Cielo.
Drive, yeah,
Okay.
because that was where Sharon Tate was murdered. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I know.
Yeah, that's the Manson murders. Sharon Tate was murdered there with Jay Sebring and Wojtek Frykowski, and I can't remember the other person's name.
And I saw Once Upon a Time in
Abigail
Hollywood.
Folger, yeah, the
Okay.
Folger eras. Yeah, we were at that, like, in that place, and that place was really beautiful. Like it was it wasn't really a mansion; it was like a ranch house, you know, on this beautiful property. And we took the living room and made it into the studio. And Shelley Yakis had come and given us some pointers on how to do that. And a couple of the techs, Mark Tyndall and Mark Morangel from A&M, who were the technicians at A&M, you know, gave us all kinds of information and like really helped us set up a great studio. So the recording there, we had this really nice studio. We're using an AMEC Mozart board, which is a great sounding console. It had all the Neve modules in it. It was like a really nice little room to record in, and we could record drums in the dining room. It sounded really good. And so like, but it was like every day, you know, you'd show up every day in the house. We slept there. There were a couple different rooms. There was a guest house that Chris Frenna was sleeping in, and Flood was there. He was in a guest room there. And so Flood and I would work all day, or mostly during the days, mostly during the day, we'd play Prisoner of Zelda.
Nice.
And, you know, until like 6 or something. And then we start working on the record. And it was one of those records where we were doing everything kind of at the edge of technology, where we had 2 Studer 24-track machines that we'd record to. We had a Pro Tools system. And at the time it was like, you know, I think we had 4 channels of Pro Tools. You know, so we record things in Pro Tools, cut them up, edit them, and then dump them to 24-track, and then go back and forth. And we had a time, like a Microlinks unit that was our synchronization thing, and it would always screw up on us. Like it was constantly having troubles, which may be the ghost of Sharon Tate, you know, screwing with us or whatever.
See my cat walking. You see, I told you I don't lie about it. He's like,
Yeah.
that's, you know, he's getting mad walking in front of the camera.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where technology would always break constantly. Like it was, you know, it was a nightmare. But we did really, really cool stuff, you know. And for me, it was amazing. I got to work with Flood. He got to, you know, he taught me everything I know about producing, really, you know, in that period of time. But it was all about experimenting. You know, we're there 24 hours a day, so like, you know, it was come up with a bunch of crazy configurations for pedals and run a guitar through it and then, you know, record something you'd never heard before. You know, that was what it was all about, you know? So that was our vibe.
What do you think about what Trent's doing today, doing movie scores and winning awards and Oscars? I mean, did you foresee him going down this route?
I always thought he should. I mean, like after With Teeth, I thought, well, the obvious thing he needs to do is get into scoring. And when Fincher contacted him, because we had done the stuff for Seven, you know, we had done a couple of songs for that and stuff. So it was, and we did, and of course we did the film score for Lost Highway for David Lynch.
Right.
Right. And so, and then also we had been working, you know, during like 95, 96, we were working on Doom, doing the soundtrack for Doom for the, you know, so it was kind of it was a seeming natural progression. And I thought the soundtrack for The Social Network was genius, you know, like, and so, you know, it makes total sense. Plus Atticus is like he's one of my favorite composers. Like the Book of Eli is phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like his composition on his own is incredible. So the two of them together doing that is just really awesome. I was so happy. Like Trent finally in Atticus, Trent finally found that collaborator that like just worked perfect with him, you know?
Right on.
You
know, Sean, I mean, this is, again, we can keep going and going, but my he's going to attack me again. I can't thank you enough for your time. Just to kind of bookend everything, is there any projects now specifically you want people to be out on the lookout with that we can, you know, whether experience now or you have coming down the pike that you're excited for?
Oh yeah. Actually, Juliet and I are working on a new 8mm record.
Okay.
And so that should happen probably within the next 5 months. It'll come out. We've got 4 songs in the can right now, and they're turning out really cool. Kind of a lot like our soundtrack work. You know, our last record, if you haven't heard it yet, Heart Shaped Hell I'm super proud of it. I think it's really cool. So, you know, if you get a chance to listen to it, do that.
And the best place?
And also right now, with Shining Norway, we just released a new single, and it's called Kiss My Ass, and it's so fun, like heavy rocking, but like fun, you know, fun lyrics and stuff. Jürgen and Ula and I wrote over the last 6 months. So check that out. It's on Spotify. Just got on a couple really good playlists and stuff, so it's doing really well. So.
You know, dare I ask, and maybe this is going to, if it's going to keep you here for forever, just you can give you a short answer. Do you have an opinion on what's going on with Spotify and Joe Rogan and
yeah.
if you want to share it, I guess you can. I mean, you know,
my opinion on Spotify is it's terrible. You know, it's one of those things where I like, you know, it's like I'm like normal people. I like the fact that I can now stream movies when I want to hear them, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, I pay the subscription fee to Netflix and, you know, and Disney Plus and all those things, you know. I really love that in-demand thing is amazing. I think in-demand stuff should be for music or whatever. What I'm against is a guy getting a ton of money from venture capitalists, mainly for data mining, you know what I mean? And what he does to attract all that data so he can sell it to people is shortchange artists and really make them into slaves, you know. And and what's even worse is that the major labels kind of went along with it and made their own separate deals with them, so they get way more money than the artists. And so, a producer I know, Greg Wells, just posted one of his things where he has a song that he wrote with 3 other people, 100 million plays on Spotify. He got $6,000. That's not even what it cost him to make it.
Yes, obviously
something's
wrong.
Yeah, obviously something's wrong, and it's a completely unsustainable thing. You know what I mean? And especially in the era of like the pandemic and stuff, where we can't even do the main thing we could do to make money, and even like play live, right?
Yeah.
And playing live, before this stuff happened with streaming and downloading, obviously, which was the worst thing for us. What most bands use that as use touring as a promotion for the album, right? So it promoted album sales. So it was really marketing, right? And they got used to going like, well, we really want to market this great, and we want to give people an amazing experience for a really good price. So most bands who are doing these amazing shows, like Nine Inch Nails Downward Spiral tour, like literally the amount of money it costs with ticket sales and stuff like that, they were literally breaking even. You know what I mean? Like we could just afford the 3 buses that we needed and the 5 semis and the, with the lighting rentals and the sound rentals and all that stuff. We're pretty much breaking even. And the only thing that they were making money on was the merchandise sales, like t-shirts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's like primarily at that point you had record sales and you had merchandise sales that were the things that gave you the money to be able to make the next record, to do the next thing, to make the show even cooler and amazing. And now in this era, people have kind of stopped buying merchandise. Because I mean, face it, people don't make that much money now because prices have.
Yeah, I'm selective with what I buy,
because you have to be,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, it's when you consider that wages have stayed flat since the 80s, you know what I mean? And everything has gone up in huge, costs, I mean, housing, food, like everything, gas, blah, blah, blah. Everything's 3, 4, or 5 times more than it cost then. People don't have the kind of income they used to have, you know what I mean? And it's a huge economic problem when you can't provide an economy that supports the majority of your people. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I had to take the opportunity to pick your brain, somebody who's been in the industry for so long and has seen so many different things and so many different changes. So I appreciate you sharing that, and hopefully something changes, because whether, the whole Joe Rogan controversy aside, that's not right. That's just not right. A lot of
because to me the Spotify thing with Joe Rogan, like, I mean, Joe's a guy. He's allowed to say what he wants to say, like, at least, I mean, I think he's allowed to say what he wants to say First Amendment wise, which, means the government can't come in and tell him what he can say, because that's against the First Amendment.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But the public can speak against him, and other people can say, I think that Neil Young had every right to say what he said. You know what I mean? Like, Joni Mitchell, whatever, just like Joe Rogan has every right to say what he wants to say, and, it's, I would love to see more artists pull out of Spotify, and I would love to see a bunch of really great legacy artists like a Bruce Springsteen, like a Eagles, like blah, 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 like come up with a streaming platform that doesn't, have a $40 million office building,
right.
Doesn't keep $1 billion worth of money for themselves, and, uses it as like a nonprofit, and then gives streaming money, and maybe even does like what Netflix and Apple Plus or Disney Plus and Apple TV does, where they create creative content, maybe the next Spotify, acts kind of as a record label and gives seed money to an artist that they believe in, you know what I mean? And helps them, create a new artist, do a new thing. 'Cause that's what we need. You know what I mean? Like we don't need someone who just takes all the money,
I hear you. I mean, as somebody, I'm not a musician, but as somebody who puts his podcast on Spotify, YouTube, or all these places, I'm not Joe Rogan signing these deals. This is just a little, little shekels coming my way.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'm glad I'm surviving because I have a job. But still, if this is your job, you got to get direct compensation, or appropriate compensation.
yeah, for sure.
So I get it.
But what I like about because I love the podcast thing, you know what I mean? And I love that so many people are able to kind of do a passion project, you know, and get that kind of publishing. Like a guy like Aaron Menke, like from Lore, had an idea and he did it and has been able to parlay it into a lot of things, just like you can do, like everybody can do, I love that aspect of it. But what guys like the streaming platforms, like, Spotify, it's literally just they're using music as an excuse to get people in so that they can data mine it to major corporations. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's like that would be okay if they were paying the artists, because if you take all the music off Spotify, and there's just a few podcasts or whatever, you're not going to see the kind of,
no
user base, what I mean? Music is the user base, it's what everybody loves, it's like it should get the kind of love that it deserves, you know what I mean?
I do. Again, I appreciate you, giving your insight. I knew it wasn't going to be a short answer, but you mentioned it. I'm like, I got to pick his brain. I mean, I hope to get you on again.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Thank you so much. And you'll appreciate how I end this podcast, but I'll say that's it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. What is to come? Actually, I think next week I have a lot of different people coming on. I got Daryl McDaniels, Run DMC.
Oh, yeah.
I was supposed to do it, but since he lives on the East Coast where I am, we had a major storm and his internet connection wasn't working. I'm getting Walter Flackus from Stabbing Westward.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. Cliff Compton, who I don't know if you're
it's funny. I work with Andy Kubashevsky, they're like the drummer and songwriter from Stabbing Westward.
Okay.
Yeah, I work with him a lot. So
okay. Yeah. Walter says, and he didn't even know this, that he's a radio DJ in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've just recently started visiting Chicago because my fiance is from there. But
I love Chicago.
I do too now. I definitely do. I've gotten tattoos there now. Actually, the last tattoo I got of the GNR robot. I got the Tattoo Factory.
Nice.
Tie everything in together. And also, I don't know if you're a wrestling guy. He used to go by Domino in the WWE. He's Cliff Compton now, but he dresses like Axel in the ring. I mean, he's just. You got to interview that guy.
Yeah.
So when are you going to see these episodes? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.